What's up, guys? Well, I'm sorry, then. What's up, guys? So today we're going to be talking about an incident, that happened in Bexleyheath, on Saturday. So the Saturday just gone. So 9 a.m. on Saturday morning, a 9-year-old girl and her 5-year-old brother were hit by a bus whilst out with a family member. Now the young boy is doing what is expected to make a full recovery. However, sadly, the 9-year-old girl died from her injuries in hospital on Monday afternoon. The Metropolitan Police have confirmed that. Now, obviously, I was horrified, by this incident. But what has shocked me more, I think the most about this incident, is the fact that a bus driver that was employed by TfL has been arrested on suspicion of basically causing serious injury and death as a result of reckless and dangerous driving, and he has also been arrested on suspicion of drug driving. Now, this is obviously a pretty serious thing. The fact that a professional bus driver has just been arrested for a drug driving offence. Now, obviously, from what's been said, the bus driver has been released on bail, pending further inquiries. So that basically means that he's not been officially charged with anything yet, because the investigations are still going on. I'm sure that when the investigations have concluded, the police will make a decision on whether they are actually going to formally charge the bus driver with these offences. I mean, obviously, if he gets found guilty, if he is charged with these offences and he's found guilty, he'll be facing a stint in prison. The way I see it, this bus driver who was responsible for this, who's just been arrested, he deserves to lose his job. And I'm not just saying that the bus driver deserves to lose his job because because a child has died, in this incident. I'd be saying that even if it was an accident where nobody had gotten hurt, I'd still be saying that the bus driver should lose their job, because regardless of whether or not someone was hurt or not, drug driving is still a very serious offence, especially for a professional bus driver. The fact that he's obviously taking drugs and was behind the wheel of a bus is unacceptable. It is absolutely unacceptable. I hope that TfL punish this bus driver in the most appropriate way. He should be punished for this quite serious. He should face quite a serious punishment for this. I mean, obviously, the bus driver has to live, has to live with that guilt for the rest of his life, knowing that he was basically responsible for the fact that a child has lost their life. It was his actions that cost that child their life at the end of the day. And that's a guilt that he has to live with for the rest of his life. But at the end of the day, in my honest opinion, that bus driver deserves to lose their job, because obviously, after that they don't have to live with that guilt for the rest of their lives, but they should lose their job. Obviously, I feel sorry for so sorry for the young girl's parents, and I want to kind of send my sympathies and my condolences out to her family. At what will obviously be an incredibly sad and difficult time for them. Obviously for her brother as well, because her brother was also injured in that incident, and he's got to try to come to terms with the fact that his sister has died, and that he's never going to see his big sister again because she was killed. I mean, it's just a horrible incident. I mean, obviously, I've really laid into TfL bus drivers before, and I've said that they don't care about safety. And I have said this due, due to the actions of certain bus drivers, and due to certain things that I've encountered while I was travelling on buses here in, here in the East End of London. Obviously, I've encountered a lot of bus drivers who don't really seem to care about the safety of their passengers all that much. Suffice to say. Obviously, this is a horrible and extremely tragic incident. Obviously, the main kind of facts of this is the fact that a child has lost their life. Now, what's not been made clear is whether there were actually any passengers on the bus, or whether the bus was, that's not been made clear. Were there any passengers on the bus? Was the bus out of service at the time? This is something that obviously hasn't been made clear. But the fact that a driver has been arrested on suspicion of offences such as causing serious injury and death by dangerous and reckless driving and drug driving. It doesn't get any more serious than that. That shows a bus driver being, extremely irresponsible. At the end of the day, just because he's been released on bail at this moment in time, that doesn't mean that that doesn't automatically mean that he's not going to be charged with anything, and that he's not going to be facing a serious punishment as a result of what's happened. Because he could still be formally charged, with these offences and, it's not been made clear at this time whether or not he is actually definitely going to be charged with these offences, but what we know is that he hasn't been charged, he hasn't formally been charged with anything at this time. But it's still a horrible incident, either way, a child has lost their life. And that's what obviously most people will be thinking about with this incident. Obviously it's a tragic accident. And the reason it's such a tragic accident is because a child has lost their life. But, people will obviously be left shocked, extremely shocked and angered by the fact that, a bus driver that was employed by TfL, a professional London bus driver, has been arrested on suspicion of drug driving. Yeah, he hasn't been officially charged with that yet, but he was still arrested for that. And I'm sure TfL won't want that kind of want that sort of thing to stain their reputation. You think about how it would look for them if they actually kept that driver in the job after what they did. No bus driver deserves to stay in their job after they've been arrested for drug driving. If they're arrested for something like that, that should be an instant dismissal from the job. Regardless of whether their actions led to, to be honest, it doesn't matter. To me, it doesn't matter whether somebody was injured or not as a result of their actions, because they were still drug driving, and they've still been arrested for drug driving, and that to me warrants somebody, that to me warrants a bus driver losing their job. Because, you think about it, there was only one person that was killed, it was only, it was that young girl that was killed, but, that whole situation would have been a whole lot worse. That would have been, it wouldn't have just been that one girl that was killed. There could have been more than one person killed in that incident, but thankfully the young boy is doing well and he's recovering well in hospital at the moment. But, it's another one of those horrible incidents where a child has lost their life in the most unfortunate of circumstances. I remember there was a story years ago. A man was, a guy who was working he was working in South London, and he was driving as it was when the bendy buses were still in service at the time. They were still in operation. And the bus driver. There was a bus driver driving a bus, and he hit a young girl. Um, and he hit a young girl, and she was killed. Now, that girl's father actually drove a bus on the same route as the driver that hit his daughter and killed her. So, a little bit of awkwardness there. I mean, obviously I was always glad they got rid of the bendy buses, because the bendy buses were a death trap. But so these days, a lot of bus drivers are very irresponsible, and this incident will obviously cause a lot of shock. If he doesn't lose his job over this, there should be a lot of outrage, because people should be questioning why the bus driver hasn't lost their job when they've just been arrested for drug driving. Because that should be an that should be a dismissible offence there. That's an offence that should be worthy of a driver losing their job, because what he's done there is he's not only put the safety of pedestrians at risk, and he's put the safety of others. He's basically putting the safety of not only his safety at risk, but he was also putting the safety of other road users at risk, and that is unforgivable. The fact that he was drug driving, that is unforgivable. Why should he be forgiven for putting the safety of other road users at risk? And that's what he's done. That's what they did. That bus driver put the safety of other passengers at risk. And I can only hope that the bus driver faces serious consequences for this. But, once again, I want to send my condolences and my sympathies out to the young girl's family and to her little brother. Because they're going to be dealing with, something that's extremely difficult at the moment. They're going to, it's like, how are they supposed to come to terms with this? How are they supposed to, kind of deal with the fact that their child, their child's been killed, that they've lost their 9-year-old child, just like that, a 9-year-old child who had her whole life ahead of her, goes out one morning and gets shot by a bus and killed. The injuries that she suffered must have been very severe. She's died 2 days later in hospital. The injuries she sustained in that collision must have been very severe. I mean, you think about it, right? A small child being hit by a 12-ton bus, the impact is going to be, pretty bad. I mean, obviously when a child gets hit by a car, it depends on the speed as well, But that's one of the factors that will be looked at, is the speed that the bus driver was going at the time. Obviously, we know that he's not actually been charged for speeding, so I'm guessing he wasn't. I'm guessing that they've been able to confirm that he wasn't speeding, but they weren't speeding. But at the end of the day, I'm sure that the Metropolitan Police will be looking at all different avenues here and be looking at exactly what happened, and the circumstances as to how this incident occurred and how this child lost her life. She went out. It's like the impact of a child being hit by a car is pretty severe, depending on the speed they're going at. But being hit by, the impact of a child being hit by a bus, I would probably say, is worse than, the impact of a child being hit by a car. I think if anyone's hit by a bus, the injuries are going to be far worse than what they would be if they were hit by a car. If you think about the size of a bus and a lorry compared to the size of a car, of course the injuries are going to be a lot less severe, depending on the speed of the car and the vehicle as well. But, it's horrible for anyone to be involved in an incident like this, let alone a child. And this is what stands out to me about this incident, is the fact that a 9-year-old girl has lost her life in the most tragic and unfortunate way. It's absolutely horrendous. It's horrible, it's extremely tragic, for a young child to lose their life in the way this little girl has, obviously being hit by a bus and killed, in front, and obviously we know that her, as I said, her younger brother, who was only 5 years old, he was injured, but thankfully he's doing well, he's doing okay. But his whole life and his parents' whole lives have been turned upside down because they've lost their beloved, they've lost their daughter, they've lost, something they can't get back. It's two more parents that are having to bury a child. And I was saying, and I've said this a lot about in relation to what happened in Southport. No parent should ever have to bury a child. And it's the same with this incident. No parent should have to bury a child. Especially after when they've been hit, when they've been killed in an incident like this. It just doesn't make sense, really, does it? How a 9-year-old child can just go out one morning and be hit by a bus and killed. She can be hit by a bus and die 2 days later. That just doesn't make sense to me. Obviously, I know I've gone off on one about the bus driver, and I say the bus driver's sacked, but I also hope that the bus driver's doing okay, because just as much as they were in the wrong, you also have to think about them and how they're feeling at the moment, because they've got to live with that guilt of knowing that they hit a child and killed them. It's like, how can anybody ever live with that? Knowing they were driving a bus and they've hit a child and then that child has died. It's like, that's a guilt I don't think I'd ever be able to live with. I think to be honest, if I ever was involved in an incident like that, where I was responsible for a pedestrian losing their life, I would probably quit the job, because I don't think I'd be able to continue doing that job after something like that happened. Because of how it's because of how guilty I would feel, knowing that a young child has lost their life, in this in a truly horrible and terrible way. That bus driver is probably very, very worried now, because obviously he's been released on bail, but he will still be charged with the offences that he was arrested for. He will still be charged with causing death and serious injury by dangerous and reckless driving. He'll still be charged with drug driving as well. So he's got that hanging over him. He could potentially end up in court, which there's still a very good chance it could end up in court. If he could end up facing serious consequences over this. It's just a horrible incident for everyone involved, really. I kind of sympathise with the bus driver, because obviously, what they're going through at the moment, how they must be feeling. But I'm also angry knowing that the bus driver has been arrested for drug driving, and and I'm sure that it's like, is he going to be allowed to, what's happened? Is he going to be allowed to continue driving buses while the investigation is still going on, or has he been suspended Because this is what I've always wondered. Is what is the TFL protocol after something like this happens? My guess is that after something like this happens, the bus driver is suspended for a little while. Maybe he'll probably be suspended until the investigation into the incident is obviously concluded. But until then, he'll probably he probably won't be driving buses for a while now. He'll probably be, out of the cab for quite a lengthy period of time, and that's probably not a bad thing. Considering he's just been arrested for drug driving, that might not really be a bad thing. Him not being able to drive, them not being able to drive buses for a while. If you've been arrested for something like that, that's the least you deserve. If you've been arrested for drug driving, the least the bus driver deserves, if they've been arrested for drug driving, is to lose their job. And I don't, and I don't know if people think I might be being a little bit harsh in saying that, and saying that the bus driver deserves to lose their job. But that's just the opinion I have, and and I would say that even if it was an incident where somebody hadn't been injured, because as far as I'm concerned, regardless of whether or not someone was hurt in the incident, that bus driver still deserves to lose their job. If they were still, they've been arrested for drug driving. And it to me honestly doesn't get any more serious than that. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. My condolences go out to the victim's family. And my condolences go out to them. My condolences and my sympathies go out to the victim's family. My thoughts with the bus driver as well, and everyone involved in this incident. It's a truly horrible incident. Obviously, it happened in Bexleyheath, 9 a.m. on Saturday morning. And the young girl, the young girl very sadly died from her injuries in hospital on Monday afternoon. So, yeah, horrible set of circumstances there, just wanted to give my feelings on this. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you for another video fairly soon.